Now then, okay, let's just try this one. What is going on here? Dashboard, video, let's just try. Oh, here we go. Maybe this is a different URL as well. Okay, let's just go here. Hello, Chesh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? New stream URL for right now there. Hands on SAP Dev. That was a bit strange, wasn't it? Okay. Okay. So please, thank you, Robertino, and thank you, Chesh. I think you're back. We're back in. We're back in. I have no idea what went on there. I think Streamlabs OBS is a little bit beta software. Thank you very much, Chesh. That's awesome to hear. And thank you for coming back. Yes. This is a new setup. Good morning, Amit. Good morning, Gregor. Thank you very much for letting me know. Yeah, it's a new setup because I've got a new laptop. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Manmeet. Thank you, Jodel. Hello there. In fact, I've got a special mention of you, Jodel. Is that the right way to pronounce your name as well? Andrew, hello again. Hello again. Hello, Rahul. Hello, Robert. Hello, Joe. Loud and clear. Anyway, don't know what happened there. I'm trying lots of new things for, because why not? Servus. And I've got a new laptop, thanks to Martin Lang at SAP, and it can support a little bit of a better throughput, resolution, and so on. So you should see a clearer video. But Streamlabs OBS, yeah, I've just not got used to it yet. It's probably my fault. So there we go. So welcome. Let me switch to the main scene, and we'll just get on with it now because I've messed around now. It's my fault. Messed around for a few minutes. So yeah, let's just kind of that's just thrown me a little bit actually. The scene now should be turning to the main scene. Yes, there we go. So, thank you very much. What's going on? Ah, my goodness me. So, yeah, just a couple of updates. The SAP Community Coding Challenge, the current coding challenge, number 2. There's a blog post here that I published earlier this week with all the contestants. So, fantastic work to all the contestants, all listed here, all the successful contestants, that is. 90% of the submissions were successful, over 90%, which was amazing. And I've also now, there's the post there, and I've also now put in the community Q&A for voting. And here's the link here in the coding challenge. Please go and select your favored finalist submission. So we've got 4 finalists: Hussein, Alexander, Mahesh, and Christian. So have a look at the links to their solutions. In fact, some of these folks submitted more than one solution, which is amazing. Lots of folks submitted more than one solution, which was great. So have a look at those and then use the upvote for your favourite finalist. And then next week we'll announce, who won that. So we want the vote is in your hands, not mine or anybody else. Good morning, Vincent. Good morning, Vincent. So yeah, please go there and vote. So let me just close that as well. Just so we are on board in the same brain, this is the basis upon which we're exploring this journey, consuming remote services with CAP. Okay, and the course that just completed, Building Applications with SAP Cloud Application Programming Model, CP7, I always refer to it as CP7 here. Specifically, week 4, unit 2, connecting to remote services. There was week 2, unit 1, which was importing service definitions, and then week 4, unit 2, importing, connecting to remote services. And that's the journey that we're on. Last Friday, episode 72, we started that journey, and I'll show you where we got to in a minute. Hey, Raul, good morning. Good morning to you over there in Spain. I've posted those stickers off to you. Anybody else want any stickers? I've got Hands on SAP Dev stickers. I've got Developers at SAP.com stickers. I've got a very few CAP stickers left over. Let me know. Send me a DM in Twitter with your address. And also, if you send me your address, put like new lines or where the new lines would be in the address, because sometimes I don't know how to split the address up because, you know, I'm very ignorant. So let me know. So that's the context. Now, it just so happens that I was reading through the discussions in this week 4, relating to week 4, and I came across some really interesting discussions between David and somebody who's on here, Jodel, for the first time. Jodel, again, please tell me if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Jodel. I guess the H is silent. And Jodel has written a couple of blog posts, like a pair of blog posts, which are absolutely fantastic. And they are exactly in the same ballpark as what we're exploring today. So there's a part 1, and it's very recent as well, sort of May 26th, end of May. And also there's a part 2. If we go to the bottom here, there's a part 2 somewhere where we are, external part 2. He's already written it. And there's a lot of stuff that we're talking about today and last Friday and probably next week as well that Jodel has covered here. So great work, Jodel. Really, really cool. And in fact, I knew I'd seen your name somewhere, and it was because when I was looking after the end of the live stream last week, in fact, let me just switch there. I was looking, you know, the Northwind.season file that we got generated automatically by the CDS import command was undecorated. You know, it wasn't syntax highlighted. And I just looked on the marketplace, I found this blue phoenix by none other than Jodel Kailan. So yeah, well done for supplying that as well and getting it on the marketplace. So Jodel, so you know, tell us a little bit about yourself. Say hello in the chat and everything. Really, really cool. So I'm using that now to syntax highlight the Northwind CSN. And by the way, as well, let me just turn that off now. By the way, because I've got this new laptop, I may not have things installed yet. I only set it up yesterday. So I've installed the essentials, like, you know, Vim is already there and Tmux and so on. But there may be things that I've not got. I'm going to carry on using VS Code. So yeah, just a quick reminder of where we were last week. We had imported a cut down version of the Northwind V2. Let's just go there, Northwind. So what we got was the Northwind V2 service, which looks like this, and we'd seen that, for example, by the way, is this with this should be you should be able to get 1080p quality on your video. Let me know if anybody's successfully getting 1080p. So this should be a little bit better than the 720p that we've been using. If not, then I'll have to sort of go back down to 720p and use a larger font. I definitely would love your feedback in terms of also whether you can hear any fan noise in the background, because there is some fan noise on this MacBook Pro, new one. So I put it under the desk. So yeah, there we go. Are you dabbling with TypeScript through VS Code extension? Ah, yes, of course, yes. I also know when I started digging into the VS Code extension for CDS, looking into how they'd built it, I noticed they also were using TypeScript in that as well. Also, yes, thank you for your great work. I second that, Robertino. Yeah, so definitely look into Jodel's VS Code extension. What's it called again? Blue Phoenix. Blue Phoenix. Maybe you can send us a URL or the name Jodel on the chat here. That'd be awesome. So yeah, community at its best. SAP community at its best. So we've got enter type category and customer demographic and so on. And then we also had, let's just go here. We had here, for example, where is it? The order product. Here we go. So we had product and we had a navigation property, for example, to category, which was defined by a relationship, right? Which we know in OData V2, this is like this sort of association. So when we look for this thing here, we saw that it was an association, okay, called foreign key, as we, as I think many of you pointed out on the chat last time, foreign key, products, categories, and so on. So what we did was we cut down this metadata file just to have suppliers, products, and categories. And we did a CDS import, didn't we? We brought it into here, did a CDS import, and that resulted in, and there's our cut down version. Let's just move that there a little bit. There's our cut down version with category, product, and supplier. Okay, so that's all we've got, and we still, of course, got the associations with the referential constraints. Thank you very much, Helmut and Andrew, for confirming 1080p. Awesome. And what we did with the CDS import, which converted that also. First of all, of course, it's only converted it into season. It converted it into this sort of season intermediate or base format here, which is nicely formatted. And then, when we did a CDS watch, for example, what we saw, and this is where we're going to carry on now, what we saw was that it was using in-memory SQLite, which we know already. We'd also brought in some data from the Northwind, where is it? QMacro, github.com, QMacro, Northwind data, I think it's called. Yes, there we go, Northwind data. I'm just in Brave here, the Brave browser, I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, yes, there is some work going on in the kitchen. Michelle's just came in to get something from the kitchen, but that should be quiet now. Thank you, Gregor. That's good, good microphone then. So in fact, there's the kitchen, just there. Anyway, there we go. Let's not forget to do a diff of the metadata files. We can do that, exactly. So let's have a look at the metadata file here. We've got this, the OData V4. So Gregor, are we wanting to do a diff of the V4? Of course, doing a diff of the V2 with what we get from CAP is not going to make much sense because the CAP produces V4. So let's get rid of that, and let's have a look at the localhost 4000 metadata. Let's just Gregor, great reminder. We promised last week. We did promise. Okay, well let's have a look at that now. Let's have a look at that now. Why not? Let me just sort of cut that down again and go over here. Cut this down as well. I'm still not used to these. I've not installed Amethyst yet. My sort of tiling window manager. It's not really a window manager, but my tiling mechanism. So I'm a bit sort of all over the place with the windows here. So why don't we say here? Okay, we've got the Northwind metadata. So this is the V4 from CAP, and this is the V4 from the original sort of Oasis services.odata.org site. Now I don't think we can sensibly do a text diff, but oh yes, we could get the V2 proxy. We could get the V2 proxy, couldn't we? Do we want to do that now, or do we want to do that? Because what I thought we were going to do is diff let's diff the V4 today, and then let's diff the V2s. So that would be really, so let's diff the V4s today, and then we'll diff the V2s next time, because there's going to be a part 3 as well. So we got here, let's see what we've got. Let's collapse it all. Schema, there we go, we've got a schema, and we've got a schema. So first of all, we've only got one. So this is comparing V4 from Northwind and V4 from CAP. So let's see, namespace Northwind model. Now I noticed in the season file, things had been converted to Northwind, and I think that is there's a EDMX to season converter that's part of the CAP package, right? And we know, or we can guess, that is being used when this CDS import is happening, right? And I was playing around with importing a V4 into a CAP project, and it became season, but this is V2. And what was happening is it was sort of using the EDMX to see it season, and then also changing around a few things like the namespaces. So we've got the namespace difference here. What have we got here? We've got the 4 entity types. Oh, no, 3 entity types. And in here we've got, for example, this schema here is where we got the entity sets. So there's no entity sets defined explicitly. Oh yes, there is. The entity container. There we go. There, entity sets. Entity set. I just fear that comparing this may take a little bit of time. Let's just have a brief look at it though. We've got the categories entity, we've got the entity sets. What if you use V2 as a remote source and have data what if you use V2 as remote source and have data types that differ between V2 and V4, like date time? Yes, we need to try that as well. I mean, this is see, I knew this journey would be an interesting one because there's so much that the basics of this really expand upon. So Vincent, let's do that as well. Let's take it step by step though. And let's get something running, and then we can start to look at, because I don't think there is. What if you use V2 as a remote source and have data types like that? Well, would that happen? Well, I mean, under normal circumstances, and correct me if I'm wrong here, under normal circumstances, we would be importing, for example, a V2 remote service metadata definition. We would then have for us automatically on the fly a V4 generated for that. And I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, and this is maybe the reason why you're asking this question, Vincent, I'm assuming that the V4 would appropriately reflect what was in V2. If you created a V4 OData metadata definition independently of the V2 and then tried to consume the V2 with that, is that what you're saying here? That's a good question. We should try that as well. We should definitely try that as well. But let's go step by step here. Let's find customer, employee, order detail, order, product. Here we go, product. So let's see what the product looks like. So we've got, first of all, entity. Now, first of all, one of the differences I can see is that we've got product and products, because again, I guess this has been converted, and this is only a guess, this has been converted because of the convention that CAP likes to use, that entity names are plural in CDS. I'm guessing that's the case. Now, that then makes me wonder, well, how does it do that? And there are even V4 features that don't map to V2. The SAP Business One Service Layer is quite interesting. Yes. So, okay, this is brilliant that all this is coming up, because it does allow us to dig in to what I think is a super important subject. I've been sort of thinking, are we going to be going too deep into OData? But let me know if we should, not hold back, because I don't know the answers to these questions right now, and this is what we want to find out together. So if this digging deep into OData is a thing that we want to do more of, let me know in the chat. Yes, Andrew, did you put the sample data in a folder under external? Yes. That was, I don't know whether it's documented or not in the cap.cloud.sap, but that was pointed out in the course, in the CAP course. You want the V4.01 filter in. Yeah, don't we all? Yeah, V401. I also want the, I think I mentioned this last week, I think the V401 is the version that brings the JSON metadata as well, which is going to be a lot easier to compare, I think, in my mind. Anyway, let's have a quick look at yeah. So Andrew, to answer your question, Andrew, yes, exactly. Under external, I've got data, and I've got some same approach as in the namespace and then the entity name, categories plural. So my question would be, if this is or V2 actually, let's just go here. If V2 is the source of this V4, we've got here entity type, category, demographic, customer, employee, order detail, order, product. Yeah, so obviously it's not getting the plural products. It's not just adding an S, because it would be category YS, spelt wrong, but it's categories IES. So it's obviously getting this from the other, from the entity sets categories. Okay, that's what I'm assuming, right? So Gregor Wolf, what EDMX file have you used for the import? It was V2, Gregor. It was V2. Okay. So let's stick with that for now. I don't want to jump around too much. because this is like, this is, I think it would make more sense if we just explored step by step, if that's okay. And then we'll import a V4. And I know that there are some strange issues with doing a CDS import of V4 in the season that's generated. I think, Jodel, if I remember correctly, you were asking about this in the discussions of the OpenSAP course as well, and I've seen these as well. And I think it's to do with the post-processing of the EDMX to CSN conversion that happens when you do a CDS import. But anyway, so we've got here the products. There is that schema there. There's the products, but everything else seems okay. Sorry, not okay. Everything else seems the same. So we've got the property, we've got the product ID. There's more stuff in here. Is there? Okay, well we've got the XML namespace definition here, which is not. This is the annotation namespace. The annotation namespace, is that used anywhere here? I can't see the annotation namespace. So let's just have a quick look. No, it's not. So that's been dropped. Name, nullable, store generated pattern identity. There's a lot of stuff going on in this V2 definition, right? Product name, supplier ID, all those things, different things there. And the difference, the main difference, is that we have a navigation property, category, for example, and we've got the category, the name, which is category, and the type. But here we've got, in the original V2, we've got this relationship. We've got the thing that we saw before, which is a reference to the association. Okay, so a navigation property in V2, in the source V2, is realized by a link to a reference to an association. And it's in the association where the referential constraint is made. However, in the V4, we've got the same navigation property, for example, category, but the referential constraint is inside the navigation property element here. So category ID and reference property category ID and so on, right? Now, let's have a look to what it is between categories and products, because categories and products, it's a two-way. Sorry, it's a one-to-many, right? So here we've got type collection. So if we look at category, where's category? Two products. Okay, so yeah, okay, we've got the same approach in the V2, i.e. we've got a reference to the foreign key products categories association, right? And it's down there somewhere, right? I'm not going to search for it. I don't need to look somewhere in here, right? Yeah, XML is just so hard to sort of stare at. And it's in there that the referential constraint or the relationship is defined. Whereas here, we've just got a type collection. It's a type of primitive type collection. Okay, I was looking at the OData documentation, and I think collection is a primitive type, but it's a collection of Northwind namespace products, entity at name. Okay. I took the hard route of CSN to CDL to create a model from the service. Oh, place sample data under the DB data. Ah, okay. Well, that's, if that works as well, that's also some learning, right? Yeah, okay, cool. So what do we want to do? Let's just see what we've got here. We've got, in here, we've got categories, products, and suppliers, which are the very three entity sets from the metadata V4 of the V4 OData that's been generated from the import of the V2. So why don't we now, because this is basically, if we look at what's going on here, let's just do this and put this in the left, and we'll put that in the right here. There we go. This is a result of the CDS watch. Okay. And we've got using bindings, let's just equal light. There's the data that's been filled from the data here. So theoretically, again, categories. There we go. We've got category data, we've got product data, and we've got supplier data. But that's all coming from the mock. Okay, successfully deployed, mocking Northwind. Right, and bear in mind as well, what we also saw last Friday was that when we did the import, we got this thing here, CDS requires Northwind kind model, blah, blah, blah. So we get this almost like for free, for nothing. You know, this is appearing in our service, you know, in our route as a service, as a Northwind service. There's the service document and there's the metadata there. But we have got nothing right now of our own, as it were, in here. So why, and in fact, why don't we also get rid of the app directory and the DB directory, because we're not really using those. That's just, you know, the simplest thing that could possibly work. So now why don't we add our own little service and do what David was doing, just to sort of get to the next step, which is to start referencing this Northwind service. As it is, it's just a straight pass-through, right? So let's see. What we want to do is we'll create a service.cds. Okay. It's still mocking Northwind. We'll keep the watch on, so we can see what's going on. I've not got auto save like David had. So let's bring in using Northwind from externals. There we go. That's fine. We don't want the extension, do we? Using Northwind service qmacro entity products as projection on Northwind.products. There we go. That should do it. Now just save that. What are we getting? We're getting, oh yeah, we're getting an extra message here, mocking Northwind, which is already mocking, and serving qmacro, which is this service here. So let's refresh this and see what happens. So now we get, because we haven't really done anything yet relating to connecting this service up to anywhere, because at the moment we've not really specified anything in here. It requires this Northwind OData model, but we're not really, saying where it is or whether it's a remote service, so we're just getting it mocked. But now we're getting our qmacro service, so we're getting both. So there's a qmacro service with literally just products, and the products themselves, however, are effectively, it's like a symbolic link to the products here. In fact, why don't we go into products and just add to save that, so we know that when we see the data, it's the mock data. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, that's fine. So what do we want to do next? What we want to do next is start to think about, well, actually, let's have a look at let's have a look in the metadata. One thing I noticed the other day was that in the metadata of this particular service, we've got the products entity type, but what we don't have is the navigation property to suppliers, because it doesn't make any sense to have a navigation property to an entity that doesn't exist in the metadata. So if we'll have a look at the metadata for the Northwind service, where we've got categories, products and suppliers, we can see that the product entity type has a navigation property called category and a navigation property called supplier, for example. So if we have a look here, we got none of those. Oh, sorry, we got none of those. Right, we've just got the sort of the flat default properties. So why don't we just go into the service.cds and just add suppliers and save that. If we go back over here and refresh, we get the suppliers entity set, but we also now, of course, because it is able to, we've got the navigation property back in. Oh, thanks, Jodel. Yes, this is the rainbow CSV. It's the rainbow CSV. It's a lot easier to see, isn't it? It's definitely a little lot easier to see. Yeah, rainbow CSV. There we go. So there we go. So there's that. But we're still getting the mock data. So what we really want to start doing now is start thinking about, well, what is it we're trying to do here? We're trying to sort of point to a remote service. And what I saw somewhere, either in the chat, in the conversation in the CP7 course discussions, or I don't know where it was, but basically, if we have a look at the package.json and start to add, and check this out, if we start to add another property under this Northwind requiree, the thing that's required, I suppose, we get this credentials thing. So let's have credentials. If we just say, let's save that, right? Let's have some empty credentials. Let's start to sort of build up and see what happens. Notice as soon as I save that, and by the way, I sort of git initted this project just before I went live so we can see what's going on, what changes, right? So we should just change this here. Notice now that it's restarted and it's not mocking that anymore. So if we go back here and refresh, because we're now starting to, this is my theory, because we're now starting to, you know, do this for real and start thinking about pointing this CAP service and the requirement to somewhere, it says, well, you know, there's no point in mocking this anymore. So we don't get the mock. Of course, we still get the mock data, but it's not sort of mocked for us in terms of another Northwind service here. But the thing is, realistically, we need some sort of service implementation to say, well, we've got this service definition here, but what do we want to do? We need somehow to have the CAP mechanisms, to have CDS to go and read that remote service. Okay, so let's now start to think about, and this is what David did as well, right? So this is just following what the course showed, but in a little bit more detail, hopefully. And hopefully also make some sort of mistakes here. Let's add, let's go over here, let's add service.js, let's add an implementation. Okay, we've got serving queue macro, and we've got the implementation there. In fact, yeah, we've got that there, products. We've still got mock, okay, we've still got mock. So now let's add module.exports, and because we're going to be using the CDS Connect 2, we want to run that asynchronously. We want to do a async service and const. Well, in fact, let's just do it really, really simple. Const ext, well, external service, right, equals await CDS connect to Northwind. So check out what's happened. I've just saved it, and we now get connect to object, which we may need to debug as to why that's saying object. I think that might be an oversight. Connect to Northwind, and some sort of empty object there. Does anyone know, Robert's got a question. Does anyone know if there is also a REST JSON to season converter? Not all API are OData based. Heresy, Robert. Not all API. No, that's true. It's very true. I don't know. But then again, what would that look like? What would be because REST isn't a protocol. REST doesn't have any specific conventions. It's just an architectural style, right? This is me thinking aloud. So anything is REST. You know, the YouTube website, the thing I'm looking at right now with the chat and the YouTube studio, that's a REST service. It could be any shaped. So maybe the question we need to ask first is, what are the constraints upon a given REST API that make it convertible into season? Does that make sense? Jodel, David said that non-OData is not supported yet. Okay, thank you for that. Was that in the conversation? Yes, Gregor. I think you and I are probably thinking along the same lines. Gregor is saying open API to season sounds more feasible, i.e., open API is a set of conventions for REST-based APIs. You know, you could almost say like, you know, REST is anything. And OData is a REST-based protocol with conventions. You know, for example, it's got entities, entity sets, and so on. It's got the, you know, how, you know, that's, you can imagine that being converted to something that's, you know, season-like. Okay. Okay, your question to David is exactly open API to season. Yes, okay. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So Robert, does that make sense as well? Ah, that's why you ask for REST.json. But REST.json still doesn't mean anything to me. You know, you could have any sort of JSON. You know, it's almost like what's the there was a naming convention for sort of XML over HTTP, which is again another, you know, REST-like API approach, plain old XML. So I guess what you're getting at, Gregor, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that OpenAPI, i.e. Swagger, is a specification, a REST specification. Defines a standard, language agnostic interface to RESTful APIs with yeah. Perfect. I think that's what we're all talking about. Yeah, maybe Robert, you're meaning JSON schema. Yes, Vincent says at least you can leverage the code used partially for connecting to destinations. It uses Cloud SDK. Check. Yes, REST client.js. In fact, I've been debugging some of this stuff this week just to have a look at something else, and I came across client.js. And in fact, also, maybe not in this episode, because it's 8:42 already. We haven't done anything that I wanted to do. Well, so it's fine though. This is great. This is great conversation. CAP uses the Cloud SDK to reach remote services via destinations, as we'll see eventually. So let's try. Let me try and move on a little bit. So we've got connect to object, and so if we now add, so we've got connection to object, but we're still, you know, still getting nothing right now. So it's sort of saying, well, here, have some mock data instead, right? That's what I'm guessing what's happening. But now what we can say is serve.on. When we read, we get a read request for, let's say that's the product entity. Let's use this as a handler. Let's just do it as a block thing here. Return, and we can say ext. This is what David was using, right? ext.user transaction on the connection we've got to the remote service. Let's base it on the request.run request.query. Okay, we'll put a debug. In fact, let's put a console log in read here. Let's put it up there. Okay. So now let's try that. If we go to products. Ooh. Yes. Right. Okay. That makes sense. And again, I'm deliberately wanting to go slowly and sort of have things break so we can learn from them, right? So we get connect to object. We connect to object Northwind with something, you know, with nothing in the curly brackets there. Serving queue macro, get queue macro products in read. So we reach that point there. Error while executing custom handler read operations. No URL configured in credentials for Northwind. Okay. So this is sort of telling us that in the package.json, we could have, what's the v2 URL? That'll do for now. We could have that. So I've just added this URL property inside the credentials block. Okay, eventually we're going to be doing more with the credentials block when we start using destinations, but you know, let's just go slowly but surely. Exactly, empty credentials, but now we've got a URL in there, and it's restarted, and we can see connect to Northwind with this URL. So now let's have a look, see what happens. Now we get data, but look, we don't get the mock chai, we get the actual data, chai, from Northwind. So this thing here is actually happening. If well, actually, why don't we run this? Debug equals true CDS watch. I'm not sure what this will give us, in terms of anything useful, but let's have a look. Let's run it again. Okay, no, didn't really. Acquire connection, release connection. But that's okay. So now what we're seeing here is we're seeing a consumption of the actual services OData.org v2 Northwind SVC blah 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 products, and I guess we can even, for example, I don't know, filter equals discontinued equals true. Let's find the discontinued ones. That should therefore not be there when we do it. Yeah, that's cool. Right. So far so good. So what have we got? We've got an imported v2 OData EDMX file. It's been converted to season. CDS is serving that as v4, and it's allowed us to expose that entity in our own service here, and it's allowed us to write a really simple service implementation. Obviously we're not going to do anything special right now with the query, so we're just passing that straight through, and it's using the